Good afternoon, everyone. So, I always wonder how my life would be if I stayed in Florida. If my mom never picked me up from school that day and told me that I'll be moving to New York with my dad, and not just moving, I'd be leaving tomorrow. My dad was a man that I had no relationship with. The last time I saw him had to be about 4 or more years ago. But I'm going to live with him tomorrow? Okay, this should be interesting. Life in New York was different from life in Jamaica and way different from life in Florida. It was faster. The people spoke different. They acted different. But somehow I felt at home, like this was where I belonged. I loved the big city life. The year is 2011. I'm fresh out of high school and I started to see people my age with money, and a lot of it they're wearing things that I knew I would have to work overtime for 10 years to afford. But I wanted these things. I was young and impressionable, so I made it my mission to find out what everyone was doing. I later found out it was credit card fraud. Always a fast learner, I got in with the right crowd, or the wrong crowd, you could say. And I started getting my hands on some of that fast money too. Making thousands of dollars at the young age of 19 can take you down a path that you never dreamed of going. I saw a jail cell one too many times for my liking, 5 times to be exact. Looking at me, would you have guessed that? I doubt it. Recidivism is a real thing, and I'm proof of that. The data shows that 33.4% of people are rearrested citywide for a new crime within a year. About 13.2% are rearrested for a felony, and 4.7% are rearrested for a violent felony. I'll never forget my first time, though. That moment of self reflection, trying to figure out how did I end up here? I never pictured my life this way, but oddly enough, knowing it wasn't going to be the last time because I wasn't going to stop doing what I did that landed me here. The last time I saw a jail cell was 2018. I went down to Mississippi because, as we all know, people up north always think people down south are slow and they're not hip to what's going on. However, I didn't take into account that I would be racially profiled for being African American, and spending a large amount of money would look suspicious. So I ended up in jail. I was in Mississippi fighting for my life. I was held without bail for 11 months because I was deemed a flight risk due to not being from that state. During this time, I had my full circle moment and realized that this is actually not the life I want. I realized that I'm above these things that I keep subjecting myself to. I'm a beautiful girl and a very smart one in that. You can't go in the store scamming thousands of dollars at a time without being smart. So why am I in jail surrounded by so many people in their last leg of life? In that jail cell, I came up with a plan. I decided to do life differently. If I ever got a second chance, I decided I wanted to help women that were coming home and wouldn't have the same opportunities as me. I knew that going home, I had family, friends, support, education, skills, and I met so many women that didn't have those things. So many of them were unable to spell basic words. And here I was, spelling bee champ for elementary, middle, and high school. A lot of the things I took for granted, these women simply did not have. When I came home, I was now a felon. And being a felon and a black woman, you can imagine how hard it was to get a job. I had the education, the skills, the experience, the resume. I looked really good on paper, but I could not land a job. I still had that label of being a felon. That made me think about all the women I met while incarcerated that had none of these things, and I began to wonder, how can I help them? So I started Ground Up, which is a reentry organization for post offenders. Currently, I'm still seeking funding and partnerships, but my end goal for Ground Up is to provide resources for post offenders, such as interview prep, resume building, partnerships with jobs that hire people with criminal records so that I'm able to set them up with job interviews and assist in finding housing. Because formerly incarcerated Black women have the highest rate of homelessness, nearly 4 times the rate of white men, and twice as high the rate of Black men. Since being home, I've done podcast interviews with orgs such as Women Health Inc., where I discussed reentry and some of the issues women face when they come home and also while incarcerated. I even made an Instagram for Ground Up, where I talk about everything criminal justice related. You can follow me on Instagram at It's Ground Up. I'm also involved in programs such as this one with the Ladies of Hope Ministries to learn more about the criminal justice system and to meet people whose goals align with the ones I now currently have. Also, to meet more women who may offer me resources and know the right direction to point me in. Last but definitely not least, just last week I got a job offer from WCGA, the Women's Community Justice Association, for a salaried position, making more money than I thought I would be able to make as an African woman with a felony. I know I didn't go through the things I did and make the wrong turns I made for no reason. If I can spend the rest of my days helping post offenders, then my life will be fulfilled. Prior to this, I always felt like everyone had a thing they were good at. And then there was just me. I always knew I wanted to help people and that I enjoyed that, but I never knew in what capacity until I went through my ordeal. Thank you so much for attending today and all that you have done for the Ladies of Hope Ministries.